Item number 20, Supervisor Knight recommending the Board adopt a resolution stating that the implementation of United Nations Agenda 21 strategies for sustainable development at the federal, state, and local governments across the country will have a destructive repercussions, and we hereby endorse rejection of its radical policies and rejections of any grant monies attached to it.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Just so everybody understands, it will be my intention to continue this item off calendar. The resolution needs some modifications and some more work. So, is there anything from staff? Okay, then I'll open up to the public for comment. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and we're talking about the continuance of this item off calendar. We'll have this item probably heard at a later date.
Thank you. Evelyn Veerkamp, Placerville. I would like to thank the Board of Supervisors for even raising the matter. To the best of my knowledge, until now, it's been just about verboten to talk about Agenda 21. Most people deny that it exists, and I think it's very difficult to make rational decisions and do decent planning without acknowledging the reality of guiding documents. The one thing I would like to comment in particular about Supervisor Knight's memo is that at the bottom he speaks about streamlining local land use. I'm not clear if local land use is being streamlined or constricted, because it seems as though it's becoming harder and harder and harder for people to know what the regulations are that they live under, and it's harder and harder and harder for people to have a free access to the use of their land. But having said that, I am indeed grateful to you for putting this on the agenda, regardless of where we are, generally speaking. Agenda 21 does in fact exist. Agenda 21 simply means agenda for the 21st century. It's not hocus pocus. It can be found on the UN website. It's available to anybody who wants to research it, do some work, have a look, verify its existence. George W. Bush signed the agreement to implement the...
You started off great about, thanking us and moving forward. Excuse me. So let's stay with the subject matter, because this will be brought back for a much further discussion, and I want to give it the time that I think a lot of you want to talk about.
I'll be very brief because I realize you're in a rush. George Bush signed the agreement to implement Agenda 21 in 1992. One of the main chapters is on local authorities' initiatives in support of Agenda 21. This will be followed up at the Rio Conference, which is starting in June this year, in other words, in less than a month. One of the guiding, this is the follow-up document, which can also be found at the UN website. One of the implementation documents has been something called Growing Smart Legislative Guidebook, which is 1,400 pages long. This followed out of the National Governors Association in 2001, August 2001, in fact. Only 5 months later, the American Planning Association produced this stunning document, which is 1,400 pages long. The bulk of it is devoted to land use, local implementation, and state implementation. And I really thank you for recognizing the existence of these documents.
Thank you, Evelyn.
Hello, my name's Tina Mazzani, and I just wanted to let the board know that Colfax County has already signed and written up papers denying Agenda 21. They've already done all the work, so if you want a copy, I can either email it to you or you can contact the Board of Supervisors or City Council in Colfax County.
Okay. Thank you, Tina.
George Turnbull, El Dorado County resident, candidate for District 2 Supervisor. One of the big issues has been Agenda 21 in our county, also our state, and the United States. You know, one of the big issues is looking at this draft that we have, Agenda 21, where a lot of counties in our own California have opted out of it. I think it's a great thing. And I'm glad, and I appreciate John looking into it and putting this on the agenda. I think it's great. Thank you, John.
Thank you, George.
You know, there's a lot of things we need to do here, because what has happened is our forests are being shut down. We can't even use our own natural resources. People can't even enjoy the forest. You can't even pull off of Hope Valley and walk through and take pictures like we used to do in the past. It's wrong. And this is all consists of Agenda 21. Talking about our forests where we can't even harvest. They have shut things down, especially when we can put people to work in our county, our state, and the United States. The problem has, you look at it. Look at Arizona governor just opted out of it. You have Kansas governor has opted out of it. There's been a lot of other states that have opted out of it. Our counties, for example, Calaveras County and Amador County has opted out of it. You're talking about Colfax, they've opted out of it. There's a lot of issues here, and I think the problem is a lot of people don't understand. They say it's a conspiracy theory. But if it's such a conspiracy theory, how come all these states and counties have opted out of it? I think it's a great thing, and I think we need to kick it to the curb. Thank you.
Thanks, George.
Nancy Swenson, Cameron Park. I agree with the previous speaker. I think Agenda 21 is a very dangerous agenda. From what I've seen and read about it, it could be a real assault on our private property. I appreciate that you want to look further into this. I encourage you to do so. But I really think we need to kick Agenda 21 out of this county for good. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy.
Hi, Sue Taylor. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to this. Over the years, I've attempted to warn the board regarding the threat of Agenda 21 sustainable development to our Constitution. There's something in there that appeals to everyone, and that's what makes it so dangerous. On that note, I brought a guide for public officials to understand sustainable development and Agenda 21. There's 5 of them here, and I made one that could be scanned and put on the item so that the public, if they want to understand this, would make it. It's a simple 14-page guide, but basically it's a lot of things. It's why we are building wildlife corridors, why we're closing roads in the forest. It's why we're doing rails to trails, complying to SB 375, building out our corridors with high-density dwelling units along those corridors. We continue to compromise our independence because we want to comply for federal and state dollars, which can be very dangerous. And I ask that you stop compromising our future. I would challenge you to read this before we come to the 2 o'clock. We're going to make changes to our general plan today that are going to connect to a lot of the tentacles that are in Agenda 21. And you need to be very careful as you move forward in doing that, that we don't give up our sovereignty of this county. I'd really like to go back to area plans and not follow a global plan that everyone else has been following throughout the United States, and go back to what makes El Dorado County so special and be able to use our resources for the things that it was meant to use it for. And my candidacy has been based on education, and I would hope that people would read and understand this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Hello, my name is Laurel Stroud, and I'm from Placerville. Supervisor Knight, I appreciate that you brought this issue to the calendar and that you're looking into it. I really do. Agenda 21 has been a big issue for people running in this election in Districts 1 and 2 in opposition to the incumbent candidates. It's been a big issue for them all along. They've been very vocal about it. What I question is suddenly this is on the agenda when this has been a big issue for the opposition or the other candidates all along, and suddenly now it's on the agenda. Both of you have been our representatives, the representative and the alternate, Supervisor Knight and Supervisor Nutting, to SACOG, Sacramento Area Council of Governments. Sacramento Area Council of Governments is very pro-Agenda 21, as evidenced by their plan to do their local transportation planning, which they've come out with over the last several years. It is a complete sustainable development Agenda 21 issue. I've never heard you voice opposition to it. As a matter of fact, personal information about the elderly, the impaired, the poor have been sent from this county to SACOG, personal information, to align themselves with this Agenda 21 transportation issue. What I want to know now, if you're feeling that Agenda 21 is something that you want to be opposed to, are you recommending now that we get out of SACOG, which I certainly do recommend. Thank you.
Rob Carey.
Bob,
yes, sir.
Supervisor Sweeney articulated you're before a body of you women in the United States flag. Could you please remove your hat?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you, Mr. Knight, for bringing this to consent calendar, whether it comes off or not, because in the memo that you wrote, to take it off of calendar, you say, I and my fellow board members are also committed to working with other jurisdictions over issues of regional significance like our highways through organizations such as SACOG and RCRC. I personally have asked this board to take us out of SACOG, which is obviously not going to happen with this board. SACOG is the engine to which Agenda 21 runs in this area. And any time that you say, well, that wasn't us, it was the state that mandated it, it was state money building deer tunnels underneath Highway 50, it turns out that that's actually incentive projects to keep us in the SACOG wheels so that we can continue on this path towards globalization and towards channeling all of the people into one area and abiding by these rules that are designed to keep us out of our own natural resources. El Dorado County is the nicest piece of property in the country. We have the ability to be completely independent. We don't need state money, federal money, UN money. That's all our money anyways. So please consider, when this gets continued, if I can't make it that day, opting out of Agenda 21 entirely, getting us as a county out of SACOG, out of RCRC, and get those people out of our lives and out of our environment that we can protect just fine.
Yeah, Rob. Anybody else? Anybody else wishing to speak to this item that's being continued off calendar?
My name is Ron Michalako from El Dorado Hills. I'm also a candidate for supervisor in District 1. I thought a previous speaker brought up a good point. The timing of bringing this to agenda item is suspect, and in many ways seems to be a flip-flopping of the issue. We voted to build high-density low-income housing. We're looking at targeted general plan amendments, which in many ways support Agenda 21 issues. Yet suddenly, 20-some-odd days for an election, we're going to bring this consent and say, holy cow, we can't have Agenda 21. It's suspect. I have not changed my stance. I think people are capable of making decisions how to govern themselves, where they live, how they live. Communities do a better job. Not some blanket policy that dictates how we live, how the community's structured, what type of environments we live in. This is America. I think we should live by the values as Americans, that people are capable of making decisions which best affect their lives. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak to this item?
Kathleen Newell, resident of El Dorado County. Supervisor Knight, thank you for bringing this to the agenda. I was shocked when I found out you were the one who actually put it on the agenda. I didn't believe it until I went and read it myself. Anyway, so I'm pleased to see this resolution exposing United Nations Agenda 21 before the El Dorado County Board of Supervisors today. I support measures to protect our environment. I've been an environmental conservationist my entire life. But I believe United Nations Agenda 21's vision is incompatible with the rights and freedoms of American citizens. United Nations Agenda 21 policy merges environmentalism and socialism to expand government into too many aspects of our lives, including food production, transportation, housing, manufacturing, and energy. Of greatest concern, it replaces farmers, ranchers, and landowners' concept of land stewardship with government-centric control. We all know what that's about. We have road closures. We have people being told they can't ranch. Their waters are being removed from their properties. The Agenda 21 movement advocates socialist policies that choke us to death with regulations, destroy our job base, sap individual creativity, and steal our ever-diminishing freedoms. I urge you not to put this resolution aside today, but take a stand and vote yes to approve it. I'd also like one of you to set a date for when it will be back on the agenda. Supervisor Nutting, you're my supervisor. Perhaps you could do that. Let's put it back on the calendar. Set a date, please. I appreciate this chance to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Anybody else wishing to speak to this item?
Morning. My name's Steve Tyler, native of this county, and we've all been remiss, and I thank you for listening to us this morning. We've all been remiss in avoiding this agenda, which was promoted by United Nations in 1992. However, it's been going on for much longer than that. And its sole purpose is to destroy this country. It's meant to tear apart our Constitution, take our private property, and put us into one world government. Maybe it's too late, I don't know. But we've already lost access to our forests. We're losing access to our mineral rights. We're losing access to use of our own private property. And whether we like it or not, it's here. And we have to address it. The sooner, the better, because it's destroying the whole economic base. We're going to lose grant money anyway. It's going to disappear because our economy is being destroyed through corruption of the EPA, Department of Fish and Game, and other regulatory agencies that are directly responsible for destroying private property rights and our Constitution itself. Thank you for addressing this issue, and I pray that you'd look further into it and take action, because our government, the powers of our government, is instituted from us, the people. It's not instituted from the government down. That's the way our Constitution is designed, and we have to return to that before we become like the rest of the world and underneath a socialist agenda, which doesn't work. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Steve.
Larry Hinnick, Pollock Pines. I'm here basically listening to what everyone has to say, and I think this board can overwhelmingly decide that this item doesn't need to be talked about any further. What we need to hear from this board is we are opting out of Agenda 21 and out of SACOG. Thank you.
Good morning, Charlene McCaslin from Placerville. I'm concerned that you want to put this off calendar and not discuss it today. I appreciate the opportunity that people have a chance to at least state their comments, even though you apparently don't plan to take any action. I'd like to point out that Agenda 21 is implemented locally. And that means that you have the ability to stop it right here. Residents of El Dorado County are already good stewards of the land. We know how to protect our resources, and we've done so for centuries. We don't need a regional plan or a mega regional plan to tell us how to do that. We're not an urban environment. We're not a city. We're a rural county, and we'd like to keep it that way. I'm especially concerned that sustainable development has the ability to sidestep CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. That was put in place to protect our resources. Sustainable development is stack and pack housing transit villages along the corridors and taking the people off the land that supports us. Please say no to Agenda 21 in El Dorado County.
Anybody else wishing to speak to this item?
Mary Donkey, resident of El Dorado County. And thank you. I want to add my thank you to bringing this to the public's awareness, a chance to comment. A year ago, this month, I believe, the chambers were filled again with the issue of the SACOG Memo of Understanding. There were many of us who saw in there a top-down proposition to usurp or at least to try to control what we do here in our county. And thankfully that day, the vote was 3-2 to reject that. That began a journey for me to look into what this was all about, try to connect some dots. So today, I have always believed for myself, and hopefully, I'm sure for you, our supervisors, the path to understanding is education. And to terribly paraphrase Thomas Jefferson, the best assurance to preserve our liberties is an informed citizenry. And so today, I have brought some packets. It's a primer. It's just scratching the surface. But I hope it will help those of you who have seen Agenda 21 Sustainable Development as being set forth by the tinfoil hat wearing crowd. It's here. It's no longer conspiracy. And in their own words, in these packets, I only have 5. I think I was supposed to have 6. In there, I just want to bring to you maybe two items, if you would find them in that packet. The month after we were here with the SACOG Memo of Understanding, I went home, fired up my computer, and discovered that there had been another executive order passed. It was the White House Rural Council created by our president, and I thought, what good did it do us to be there that day? Because in this executive order, and it's in your packets, please read and see what has been ordered to affect our rural counties. The second item in that packet is one item of sustainable development is control of the land use programs. I believe later today you are going to be considering recommendations for revised land use in El Dorado County, and I would ask that you look carefully and try to connect the dots. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Anybody else wishing to speak to this item? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close. Come on,
Jamie Butler, Placerville. Well, I've been listening to the comments of the people who spoke before me, and it makes me very sad, because what I hear is a lot of fear and a lot of misunderstanding about what I see in Agenda 21. And Supervisor Knight, I would also like to thank you. I would like to thank you for pulling it from the consent calendar, because I think this is a very complicated issue and it needs very careful deliberation on the part of the board and on the part of the citizens. I don't think it has any place on this board, and the reason I don't is because this is an ideological agenda from one political entity, and I don't think that this nonpartisan board should take into account as a whole an ideological stance. If you want to address the issues one at a time, I think that would be very appropriate. But to say Agenda 21 by itself should be condemned, there are good things and there are bad things in there. But the good thing is that we, as a county, have the power to accept what we want and don't accept what we don't want. I think that if this item is adopted, if you should help us, oh, God help us, you don't, if you should agree to condemn it, it would prevent this county from moving forward. It would stop some of the most important of the targeted general plan amendments that came not from Agenda 21, came from us, came from the people, came from all the talks that we have had. And the reason all this stuff keeps popping back up, and the reason it shows up in Agenda 21, is because some of these are darn good ideas. So, you know, it would stop us in our tracks for allowing value-added services on our ag lands, which we do not allow now, which would give our ag lands more freedom to do what they want with their land. And if you look back in history, if we had not engaged in some of those sustainable practices, we would not have progressed here. There are some things that are better left to regional decisions, and some things that are better left to local decisions. The bottom line for me is just because it's included in Agenda 21 doesn't make it a bad thing. Like I said before, these ideas come from the bottom up, not the top down. And again, the reason we're seeing them implemented in so many places is because they are good ideas. I've even heard Tom McClintock say, this is not a conspiracy. It's just a bunch of folks trying hard to do the right thing. We have a lot of challenges. We have more people on this planet than we had before. Our policies come from the good ideas of our citizens and our elected officials. They are discussed like they are now. They're voted on, and that's the way it should be. In the end, we all live in this country, and we all live in this county. We all want to make it work. Fear and divisiveness is not the way to come together. Respect, balance, cooperation from all political ideologies is the recipe for success. Thanks.
Thank you, Jamie. Okay, anybody else wishing to speak to this item?
Good morning. Melody Lane, founder of Compass, Citizens Organized to Monitor, Protect, and Serve. I'd like to just thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to bring to your attention the many tentacles of Agenda 21 and the opportunity to voice for the community to voice their concerns. There are several items on today's agenda that have their tentacles basically rooted in Agenda 21. And part of our purpose in being here today to voice our concerns is to bring a greater awareness to the public. As Mary Donkey pointed out, we have been trying as best as possible to educate the public as well as our legislators and our elected officials and how they may be participating in this threat to our constitutional freedoms. Again, I'd like to thank you for that opportunity. We've even, oh, by the way, I do want to acknowledge Terry Daly here, too. In a meeting with her on the 30th of April, she was not real familiar with Agenda 21, and I was able to equip her with some of the information to better recognize where Agenda 21 is being implemented in our communities and through the various departments. Again, it's like a lot of people are the frogs in the slowly boiling water. They don't know until they are informed. To be able to recognize those threats and how the temperature is rising gradually, we need to recognize it and, again, deal with the realities, not the conspiracy theories, but the realities of the facts associated with Agenda 21. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Anybody else wishing to speak to this item? Okay, seeing no one, we'll close the public comment period. Again, I will move that this item be continued off calendar.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion of the motion?
I'd like to say a few words, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly.
This item is a personal item for me because my family has been directly affected, and I see another family that goes back to the 1850s, the Verosa family of Latrobe. When I go down to Latrobe and see all of those trucks parked, those logging trucks parked, and I see the resemblance of what was a great industry, I think about my youth in 1965 when I walked the ranch with my dad. I was only about 5 years old, and my dad taught me, if you take care of the resources will take care of you. In 1978, I was 18 years old, took over the ranch, and I entered into the commercial timber business. And by 1992, I found myself in the midst of this whole discussion. This issue isn't something that started today. It started in the late 1980s, officially in 1992, and what it first attacked was these very remote rural areas on federal lands to a philosophy that changed not from El Dorado County, but from Washington, D.C. And so I saw the timber industry transform to what it is today, and my boys now are young men and do not have the same opportunity that I had in 1978. Literally before my eyes, I saw that industry transform, and it wasn't in the mainstream like it is now. I saw in '93 when I went to Seattle with advocates to try to derail this in 1993 to the Seattle conference where Clinton had his economic summit for rural America, where this agenda unfolded. I saw when it unfolded when Clinton and Al Gore came to Tahoe right around 1995. We were only a few because we lived in the most remote areas of the state, and we didn't have enough numbers in terms of votes to overturn this. It is becoming more and more mainstream, and I'm really happy that I'm seeing people now addressing this issue after 30 years of my family and friends and my group of folks at work have not heard it. I want to talk about a couple more things and then I'll be quiet. Off-highway vehicles. We have a ranch and we access the United States forest, and for the first time, my family's being stopped. A Roseville family went up to the forest last week, mom and dad with 3 children, just to enjoy the woods, and they were stopped 3 times by law enforcement with regards to OHV, land, the travel management plan. The Mine and Gym Club, these are fine folks in El Dorado County that want to enjoy those federal lands because of the 42 potential road closures that are up before this the federal government will affect their ability to enjoy traversing the lands just to look for mining and gem opportunities. This board was faced with the state of California with the closing down of the suction dredging industry, $50 million industry that's shut down now for no reason. California Fish and Game said that it is not deleterious to fish, but the state legislature pulled it out of the budget to issue permits. If you don't think that the state of California and Washington, D.C. do not want to transform the state, you need to rethink that, because they are. The blueprint plan, this board voted against the SACOG blueprint plan. So I believe that we can make our decisions like one speaker, Jamie, talked about, as we are, and some other folks, is that we are good stewards of our natural resources, and we can take care of it at the local level. Last thing I'm going to say is that we are trying to put a coordination team together because the environmental community have become professionals at deciphering federal policy. And so what we need to do at this county is put a team together that understands the federal law, I believe it's 219.7, that if counties and localities throughout the West come up with a coordination plan, that it doesn't mean we have the authority over the federal government. It just simply means that at the first level that we engage the federal government. So I plan on bringing that issue to the board within the next 2 to 3 weeks so that we clearly understand that this is not a now issue. It is a forever issue, that a county needs to be part of the federal planning process through coordination. So I thank Supervisor Knight for elevating this issue. I appreciate the fact that it's before our board today, and I don't have a problem, like I have in the past, of stating that we need control at the local level and to embrace the people that live here, that we are good stewards of our land. So I support the resolution before us, and I have no problems with it.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Knight. We have a motion to continue off calendar and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, motion carries 5-0. We have a time certain at 10 o'clock. I don't think we can get through the other item, Counselor, probably in 10 minutes you've set aside. So we'll take a 10-minute recess till 10 o'clock or thereabouts.